What's up YouTube, this is AfroJoeTCG, and today I want to talk to you guys about how to combat one of the most popular and powerful decks of the current format, the Zoodiac Beasts. But before we get started about what cards are good against the deck, I want to talk to you guys about how well the Zoodiacs have been performing in both the TCG and the OCG metagame. So, as I stated earlier, the Zoodiac Beasts are the most dominant deck in both the TCG and the OCG since their full-powered incarnation. In the TCG, we've only had the Zoodiacs legal for about 2 weeks, yet at our biggest event, which was YCS Seattle, Zoodiacs have taken 30 of the top 32 spots, and while not all of these were pure Zoodiac Beasts, 30 of these did contain the Zoodiac engine. And outside of the YCS circuit, we've had about 2 weeks worth of regionals, and in those 2 weeks, based on Yu-Gi-Oh! Top decks analysis and summary, over 30 of which have been top 8s, which is crazy in a 2-week span. So if you're going to play competitive this format, you need to have at least an answer or a way to fight against the Zoodiac engine. And in this video, I'm going to discuss with you guys a few different ways and describe them. So the first way I want to discuss is hand traps. And the best hand trap, in my opinion, of the format is Mat C. Mat C basically has the ability of, if you send this card from your hand to your graveyard, every time your opponent special summons a monster this turn, you draw a card. And this does one of two things. It puts your opponent in an ultimatum, which means that they either have to keep going on with their play and potentially allow you to draw 8-10 cards relatively easily, and that can give you such a significant hand advantage that you might be able to come back even from their good board. Or they have to end their play early, avoiding the risk of you drawing 8 or 10 cards, and by doing that they weaken their own board presence, which gives you a chance to come back. So it puts them in a very interesting and a very difficult position to be in. And outside of just being useful against Zoodiacs, it's useful against a variety of different decks like Mermails and Fornoids, and to an extent the recently released Eidolons or Invoked. Even though off the fusion play you only get 1 or maybe 2 cards, if you go against the Windwitch play or the 1-card Crystal Wing, you easily can draw 5 to 6 cards. And Mat C is one of the very few cards that I can say would be good in either a main board or the sideboard, and in my opinion, it's personal preference. The second card I wanted to discuss was Flying C. Flying C basically has the ability of, if your opponent normal or special summons a monster, you can special summon Flying C to your opponent's side of the field, and while Flying C is on their side of the field, they cannot XC summon. And since Zoodiacs are pretty much a deck that only XC summons, it pretty much shuts down any potential play the Zoodiac deck can make. But there are flaws to this card, one of which is that Zoodiac's main deck Barrage, which is a 1-card out to Flying C, and the second risk is if you're playing against the Metaphors variant specifically. Outside of having Barrage, all the pendulums can be used to pop the Flying C and make it pretty much worthless. In fact, it might even help them get some plays done faster. So it's a pretty high risk card against Zoodiacs, but if you wait till after the Barrage has been used and they're not playing the Metaphors variant, it definitely slows down the deck significantly, which is why I say if you don't have any of the other cards about the list in the hand traps area, this is a good side deck option, but not one I would put for the main board. The third card is Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, which in my opinion is the second best hand trap in the entire game right now. Ghost Ogre Snow Rabbit can slow down and prevent Zoodiacs from doing their plays. If they normal summon a rat and they activate Rat's effect, you can chain Ghost Ogre, destroy the rat, and they basically wasted their normal summon. And if they don't have a Barrage or a Terratop, they pretty much have to end their turn right then and there. It also has the ability to get rid of Barrage or the XC's monsters, though do be careful, if you get rid of Barrage, they still will be able to use its Grave effect. So that is technically a little bit of a problem. Outside of the Zoodiac matchup, it can get rid of problematic monsters that activate their effects, like Crystal Wing, if it's not summoned by the Windwitch method, or even Trident. It can pop the Pendulum Scales if they activate their effect, which is very, very, very important if you're playing against the Metaphors variant, because all of the scales activate their effects to pop, which is very useful. And it's also good in the main deck and the side deck, and it's even better in the main deck now if you're playing Eidolons, because Eidolons can use it in combination with Brilliant Fusion, or even just with Invocation to bring out Mechaba. And the fourth card I want to discuss is DD Crow. DD Crow may not sound like the best card, but if you time it right, it can do a lot of work against the deck. For starters, you can banish the Rapier, which in some ways not only reduces the amount of plays, but can even stop one of their plays altogether. Some Zoodiac players main deck or side deck the Manticore Darkness loop, which if you activate Mat C, Manticore Darkness will keep forcing you to draw all the cards in your deck until you deck out. And having Rapier will banish the Manticore Darkness in their graveyard, so the loop ends right then and there. It stops Daigusto Emerald from recycling, which is very, very big, because you have to target with Daigusto Emerald as a cost, and if you can banish one of the targets, Daigusto Emerald can't shuffle all three, and its effect is basically null and void. And it's also useful against certain other decks as well, so you can use it against the Eidolon deck if they have for example, their fusion card, Invocation in their graveyard, you can banish it so they can't recycle it anymore. If they have a monster in their graveyard, you can just banish the Aliester if it's in their grave, and that slows down the deck relatively as well. And it's somewhat decent against Infernoids, as you can banish their, I cannot pronounce any of them to save my life, but you can banish some of the Infernoid cards to pretty much stop certain plays from being able to happen. So that makes it a good side deck card in my opinion, but not the best main deck choice. And outside of hand traps, there's what we call Boardbreakers, and Boardbreakers are cards that pretty much are monsters that you contribute cards on your opponent's side of the field, and it eliminates them entirely from the game. So cards like Gamseo, Lava Golem, and Winged Dragon of Raw Spear Mode are perfect examples of Boardbreakers. Gamseo takes away the least amount of monsters, as you only attribute one. However, unlike the other two, Gamseo does not waste your normal summon. Lava Golem is probably the most consistently best to use out of the three of these in my opinion, as most plays for any deck usually only have around 2 cards consistently, and the Zoodiac play usually ends with a field of Daigusto Emerald and Trident. So if you Lava Golem, they'll have no cards on their field, but there is a downside, as you do lose your ability to normal summon, so I don't recommend Lava Golem if you rely on your normal summon. And the same goes for Winged Dragon of Raw Spear Mode, except you have to tribute 3 cards, but you can tribute from either side of the field, so it's not completely a dead card. Then comes Board Wipes, and the reason why Board Wipes are so effective against the Zoodiac engine is that even though they have a lot of defense against summoning, and they can get rid of problematic monsters really easily, they don't have any defense against Board Wipes. So Dark Hole, Raigeki, and Kaiju Slumber easily can wipe out their field and potentially let you go off on your turn. And finally, I want to talk about Floodgates, and Floodgates such as Power Filter, Vanity's Emptiness, and Skill Drain are each amazing against the Zoodiac matchup. Vanity's Emptiness is arguably the best one out of the 3, just because Vanity's Emptiness can go against so many decks, and your opponent has to find it out to Vanity's Emptiness at all if they want the special summon. Power Filter is a more niche use, but it does have a lot of use this format. Power Filter says that neither player can special summon monsters with 1000 or less attack, and that means that Zoodiacs only have, I believe, 2 monsters that can be special summoned at that point by that bypass, and I believe it's Thoughtblade, and I want to say it's Ram, but I'm not 100% sure. Power Filter also can, to an extent, go against the Eidolon matchup, because Power Filter prevents them from doing the 1-card Crystal Wing play, just because you can't bring out Ice Bell and you can't bring out Snowbell. And Skill Drain is actually a very interesting tech choice that I don't see a lot of people use, but I personally think is a good card. Skill Drain negates the effects of all face-up monsters on the field, and what makes it good is that if you have it face up before the Zoodiacs go off, they can't search, they can't special summon. I mean, they can overlay on top of each other, but the Zoodiacs lose their ability to use any of their effects, and the Xyz monsters, because their effects are negated, will always have 0 attack and 0 defense, making them pretty easy to get rid of. And there are other cards as well that could be used outside of the ones I listed, like King Tiger Wangu, which is a pretty interesting tech choice as well. You can use Fossil Dyna, and again, you can use cards like Dimensional Barrier or Hidden Apocrypha and do some pretty decent work against the deck. But these are the ones that I personally feel would be the best and relatively the most affordable for the average player and competitive player to use. So that pretty much concludes my video. What do you guys think about other cards that could be used against the Zoodiac matchup? So remember to comment those in the comment section down below. If there's any other cards you think could be good, like the video if you liked it, give it a thumbs down if you didn't like it. Once again, this is AfroJoeTCG. Thank you guys for checking out the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.